Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Again, this is a new session on Lut alayhi salatu wa salam, and the viewers who are going to view this camera as well as yourselves here, I'll just make it very clear that there's going to be very explicit things mentioned that are adult related things. So if there's any children that are listening to this, they shouldn't be. If there's any families that are going to listen to this together, I'm saying on the video, then they shouldn't. It's specifically, the whole of Lut alayhi salam series is going to be specifically targeted to adults. And we are going to mention things that are going to be from their acts. So I would really, put this warning now so that there's no complaints later on that this was said. So again, in the masjid as well, if there's any children here who are around, young children, please take them with you and don't complain to the committee that I've started to say X, Y and Z about them. Okay, so this is about Lut alayhi salatu salam, and he's the nephew of Ibrahim alayhi salatu salam. And Ibrahim alayhi salatu salam, we just finished his series in a good few parts, and his nephew Lut alayhi salam was living in the same time, and both because of having a drought in the region of Palestine of today, they traveled to Misr, Egypt for a little while. They stayed there, and Allah Azza wa Jal gave them a lot of wealth and things. In particular, Allah Azza wa Jal gave them a lot of herds of animals that they were taking care of. And they were returning back from Egypt, and there were herdsmen under Ibrahim alayhi salam, herdsmen under Lut alayhi salam, and they started to quarrel between themselves. And Ibrahim alayhi salam said to Lut alayhi salam that choose which land you want to go to and make that your land. And let us live near each other but slightly separate. So Lut alayhi salam, he decided to go to the sort of a part near between Jordan of today and Palestine. It's the city of Sodom, and we know the landmark because of the Dead Sea. So where the Dead Sea is, that's where Allah Azza wa Jal brought down the punishment in the end. Now this city, obviously, there was no Dead Sea there at that time. It was simply a land there. And he was, he went there and he found that there were a people there who started to do something which no other nation before them did on this earth. So, مَا سَبَقَكُمْ بِهَا مِنْ أَحَدٍ مِنَ الْعَالَمِينَ. Nobody before them had done this. Now this is mentioned in various parts of the Quran, that they are the only ones or the first ones to start this. One of the earliest parts in the Quran is in the 8th juz, in the end of the Quran, surah number 7, ayah number 80. So what's striking here is that Allah Azza wa Jal has mentioned in the Quran that homosexuality was not committed on the earth before these people. And we know there were thousands of years perhaps before Ibrahim alayhi salam and between the time of Adam alayhi salam. Now there's going to be, I'm going to talk explicitly, and I'm going to talk about homosexuality in comparison to the normal sort of sex people have and they've been created for, and we are going to go through reasons why, from a religious point of view, we feel that one should be done and not the other. And before I go into that, I need to make it clear, because this is going to go on YouTube and it's going to be all over the world, is that these sessions that I'm doing on Lut alayhi salam is going to be purely from an Islamic religious point of view from the Quran, and that's based upon the traditional understanding of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'een and their understanding of these verses. So I've said it's a religious one. So if there are non-religious people out there and they're doing what they want to do, then that is not something that we are, that is not something that we have we're not addressing them from this point of view. So if I'm saying things like this act is wrong, or it's something that should not be done and so on, this is purely from a religious point of view. And being religious point of view, I'm talking from an Islamic point of view, not from other religions like Christianity or others, because they've also, there are branches of Christianity that have problems with this, branches of Christianity that don't. And adding on to that, it's not only Islamic religious point of view, but it's also the traditional understanding of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu ajma'in, the companions of the Prophet. Why am I saying that? It's because there are Muslims today who feel they can be Muslims who are homosexuals, and they feel that their Islam is intact if they believe that that act is halal for them to do. And that's why I'm saying the traditional understanding, because if you go in today's society, you will find that there are many people who have all sorts of thoughts on what the Quran should be. You've got the literalists, you've got the liberalists, you've got the, you've got those who deny hadith, you've got those who want to interpret the Quran as they want. You've got people who say everybody should do tafsir of the Quran. You've got all sorts of people. So I'm specifically talking, and I'm a Sunni myself, and 85% of the world's Muslims are Sunnis, and we are addressing it from that point of view. And again, from the Sunnis, there are many different divisions. We are discussing a creed of the Muslims and an understanding of the Quran from the Sahaba's time. And that's the original understanding of the Quran. And anybody who claims that they've got a better understanding than the Sahaba, than the companions of the Prophets, then they are not from them. And if they are not from them, then there's a big question, where are you going on the Day of Judgment? Because the companions are going where the Prophet ﷺ is going on the Day of Judgment. And that is very clear. So if you're not with the companions, I don't know where you are. In fact, you're on a very dangerous pathway. So anyway, that's first and foremost. The reason why I've said this is because I don't want this video, and again, there's another really important thing I want to say, for all the series on Lut alayhi salam only, I don't want any section to be cut and shown as a smaller piece of the video. So these videos on Lut alayhi salam, not the entire series of the analyzing of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but Lut alayhi salam, nobody is allowed to take a piece of it and cut it out and put it onto the internet. If you look in the Quran, very interestingly, when Lut alayhi salam, he deals with these, called sodomites, or you want to call them homosexuals, when he deals with them, he doesn't make fun of them. There's an interesting lesson from the Quran. He does not make fun of these people, but he does talk to them. And he tells them clearly what they're doing wrong and what they should be doing. So mockery of these people has been something that has been going on for some centuries. And in fact, these people feel that they are being targeted because of their sexuality, because how they have sexual intercourse with one another, and they feel that the world is after them, and they feel that they're victims of this. Now the thing is, if you look in the Quran, making mockery of these people is not a way. It's not a way. I mean, the way that we deal with such people is that, of course, we give maw'idha, which is we give advice, like Lut alayhi salam gave advice. And most of it that you'll see in the Quran, that Lut alayhi salam gave advice. And in the end, the one who destroyed them is Allah Azza wa Jal. That is said in the Bible and it's said in the Quran. And there's no two ways about it. I mean, there are those who say that from a religious perspective we're supposed to understand it differently. That Lut alayhi salam never meant that, he wasn't saying that these people are doing something, they're not homosexual, but they're rapists. That's what some people are saying. Some Muslims are trying to interpret, they're trying to reinterpret these verses, and they're trying to say that those who did it in his time, they were raping one another. They weren't actually doing it with consent, and what we're doing it's all consensual. So we're both happy, but in his time there's one that was happy, one wasn't happy, and that's not the case. I'm sorry, but that's not the case from the traditional understanding of the Sahaba. That's not the case. The world has become a global village, and literally it's become a global village. In fact, sometimes forget calling it a global village, you might as well call it a house. It's like a home. You know, there's nothing you can hide from one another once it touches the internet. So Australia, Canada, China, America, Britain, France, and even the Arab world, they all have to start thinking alike. So even the Chinese government, you see them, they're dressed like the Americans. And the Japs are dressed like the Americans now. The Japs were dressed differently before. True or not, guys? Come on. They had long robes and used to look different. But the Japs are using all, a suit boot, because all the governments have got suit boot. You're not taken seriously if you've not got a suit boot. So they're all doing that. Why? Because there's an influence of the world from the most greatest superpowers onto others, and people are following suit because it's like whatever is on that side, then we must at least show that we're recognizing that to have a dominance in the world. And social media in the last few years has become I think it's the guillotine. It's a guillotine. So it either can do you a good job or it's going to kill you. So, people are scared. On Twitter, on some other social, forums, people are scared, seriously. Because once there is a storm, they call it the Twitter storm, and people start to highlight one thing. Companies come down to their knees and say, sorry, it's not going to happen again. Big companies, we're talking about billions of dollars of revenue a year, and they're brought down to the knees. Governments are affected by this. People are scared of this Twitter storm because it's in some way it has more power than the media. The media has got a large power across the world, and the media is what? The media across the world, 90% of it is owned by about just a few individuals of the whole world. 90% of the media is probably owned by 9 or 10 people of the whole of the world. That is the fact. So it's 9-10 people and their vision that is affecting 7 billion people across the world. And the 10% that are from other media sources, they can't get enough of a hype to try and get their message out. So you've got to understand what kind of world we're living in. And the people are being pushed to certain agendas like no way before. Now the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ can be understood, where he said that before the end of times, a man will wake up in the morning, he was a believer, and by evening he's a non-believer. By evening he's a non-believer, because of the amount of information that flushes and the force with it. You've got to understand, it's not just information, it's the pressure that comes with it. It's like you're the most odd person in the whole of this world. The rest of this world can't get on with you because you're not like us. You've got to be like us. Well, who are you? If I do my hairstyle like this, don't say anything about my hairstyle. Or if I have no hairstyle, you better not say anything. If I have a tattoo, if I have this, I'm not saying anything wrong with these hairstyles or tattoos, whatever. I'm just saying it's the pressure that comes with it. What we understand it as to be is that we are a people who, we have the right. See, this is the thing, and I want to mention this quite clearly, is that if we are seen as the most, we're seen as the odd ones who are not allowing homosexuality, or we don't believe it to be a practice that should be, that should be allowed religiously. If we're the only people that don't do that, do we not have the right to stick to our beliefs just as everybody else has the right to stick to their beliefs? Well, of course we do, but this is the real problem, and this is what Lut alayhi salam faced, which was that the Sodomites, the original Sodomites, were the first people who did this act. One of the things they did, the Quran says, تَقْطَعُونَ السَّبِيلِ, you cut the path. Now what's تَقْطَعُونَ, what does cutting the path mean? So the ulama have said it either means that they used to rob people who used to come to the city of Sodom. But there's a second tafsir, that they used to approach, the people who used to approach the city of Sodom, they used to come out with their homosexuality and advertise that en route to Sodom. So they would come out, and as the caravans are trying to come through the city of Sodom, what these homosexuals or the people of Sodom would do is that they would flirt and advertise their homosexuality to them, to the passerbys, because they wanted to be proactive with this. Okay, the second tafsir. And the third one, Imam Hasan al-Basri says that taqta'una sabil, cutting the pathway, means that they are a means of cutting the procreation of human beings. So that means that they are stopping our human generations from growing. Okay, so there's three different tafsir of that one part. Where is this part in the Quran? Let me just quickly give you the reference. It's in Surah Ankabut, Surah number 29, ayah number 29. So Surah 29, ayah 29. And there's three tafsirs. Now, there's one other thing about these Sodomites, which was that these people, they were people who came to their gatherings, and they were in that mood of seeing who wanted to, engage in this act. So they did a number of things. Again, the same verse, Surah 29, ayah 29, it says, وَتَأْتُونَ فِي نَادِيكُمُ الْمُنْكَرِ. You are a people that in your gatherings you bring things that are abhorred, that are disliked, that people generally dislike in a normal fitrah. So people with a natural build of a human being, when they haven't been affected by homosexuality, they will find this abhorrent. And I want to mention a very clear thing, which is, will we tolerate LGBTs? Well, the thing is, we tolerate Hindus, we tolerate polytheists, and the Quran has said the worst sin you can commit is shirk. So if they are committing shirk, and we know they're doing it all around us, houses have got shirk, they've got idols in them, they've got temples, Hindu temples with idols in them, but we don't go around smashing idols. We don't go around telling them things. We don't go around scorning them or belittling them or saying horrible things to them. And if any Muslim does that, then that's wrong. That's not the way of the Anbiya. The way of the prophets is not to scorn these people, to make mockery out of these people. The way of the prophets is to get them to have a good understanding, to get them to rationalize what they're doing. And that's what we're going to see with Lut alayhi salam as well, with his people. That he's trying to rationalize with them what is it that they're doing. So what I want to say is that if somebody out there is committing this, that's their life, that's what they're doing. But have I got a right to say that I don't believe in it? Yes. Am I going to tolerate it? Well, if I can tolerate shirk, I can tolerate that. Meaning that if I can be a neighbor to a Hindu in a good way, I can be a neighbor to an LGBT in the same way. So if I have a gay as a neighbor, no difference in having a Hindu as a neighbor. And if any Muslim feels that, that's a difference, that's simply because of your instinct. That's simply because of your nature inside. It's not because of Islam. Islam if Islam has told us to tolerate the Hindus, and in fact, it hasn't just said tolerate Hindus. Islam has said if your own parents are polytheists, then you've got to tolerate. You've got to be with, not only tolerate them, the Quran doesn't say tolerate, the Quran says if your own parents are polytheists, then you must still show your good habits towards them. This is, I'm going to give you the reference of this. So this is Surah Luqman, Surah number 31, ayah number 15. Surah 31, ayah 15. Allah says, وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ. That if both your parents are really struggling to make you a Hindu, because both of them are Hindus, you're a Muslim, or they're polytheists and you're a Muslim, and they're trying to make you a polytheist, then don't obey them in that matter. وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. But remain with them in this world in a good companionship. This is with your own Hindu parents. So with regards to LGBTs, lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transsexuals, with regards to them, I will not, as a traditional Muslim, give up my belief that the act is something which is a sin. I will not give up that. I have the right to keep that, and all Muslims, Sunni Muslims across the world have the right to keep that belief. Just like I believe that shirk and polytheism is a sin and is a crime. However, Allah has said with polytheists, I'm supposed to remain with them in a good companionship, and I will do exactly the same with LGBTs. So if you know, I'll be very honest with you. I in one of my houses where I used to live, I had a neighbor that was gay. I used to go around to him. I used to say hello to him. I used to talk to him. I was good to him. I used to shake his hand. There's nothing wrong with that. And of course, at times when I get the chance, I might talk about something religious. But that's the Quran's hukum. That's the Quran's order, command to me and you. So wherever Muslims have been horrible towards these people, they've actually gone against the Quran. We're not supposed to be horrible towards these people. But what are we supposed to do? Well, we're supposed to tell them about their wrongful act. Just like I have the right to tell a polytheist that, look, what you're doing is something which in my religion is seen as not only a sin, but is something which is not, you know, it's not of deep thought that you bow down to a stone. I have the right to say that to him. But if he wants to worship that, he has the right to worship that in this world. That's fine. He wants to worship that, he worships that. But I have the right to believe that I can invite him towards Jannah and towards a good way. Anyway, when they came to their gatherings, they came with behaviors that other people didn't have. So what did they do? Some of them came and they didn't wear their undergarment. They literally came with an overgarment but no undergarment. So when they sat down, you could see their private parts. That's one of the things they did. Another one was that they would, it's in the tafsir of Surah 29, Ayah 29, that they would make jokes with one another that are obscene jokes. So making jokes of obscenity, this was the first people these were the first people that did this. And to laugh and joke about sex and sexual acts was what they did. Another one, what they did is they used swear words, commonly, swear words, which again is a foul thing for people to do, and we shouldn't associate ourselves with those people who have the habit of having that. Again, if there are people like that, we'll live with them, but we'll try and call them to a good way. Another one they did is that they used to pass wind, or what we know as fart, loudly. So they wanted to come to their gatherings, and they used to have contests and matches. They used to have a match with one another of who could eat something, make himself fart loudly, and then burst out laughing over it. So they used to fart like whatever, and they would laugh over it. Another thing they used to do is they would come to, they would come to their gatherings and they would be very open about their sexual behavior. In anything of this world that Allah has created, Allah has called us zawj, He's called us pairs of one another. So the man is an opposite to the woman, and the woman is an opposite to the man, and they've been created as two halves to be together as a whole. And that's the Quranic description for us as man and wife. He said you're zawj, or He said azwaj. And the very interesting thing is Allah's never mentioned, whenever this is absolutely startling that what Allah has done in the Quran. Allah never says about the wife of Lut alayhi salam as a zawj. He doesn't call her a zawj because she was a kafira. She was one who was a non-believer in his religion. He doesn't say she was a half to him. He says illa mra'atahu, except his woman. Allah says except his woman. And every time He refers to in the Quran, He says except his woman. He does not refer to her as his half, because to be a half, you have to be in that relationship. Now, when Lut alayhi salam got his message, his wife was against him in that message, and she was actually with the rest of them. And this is where some tafsirs mention, and this is again not in all the tafsirs, but it's in some tafsirs, that there were lesbians in the time in that time of the city of Sodom. There were lesbians at that time. Now, of course, nowhere is it mentioned that his wife was of that kind, but the Quran mentions that she's not a half to him, though it mentions that she is his wife. Why is that? Well, some Mufassirin have said that's simply because she doesn't have Iman in her. If you have a wife that doesn't share Iman with you, then she's not a half to you, she's just a woman. So anyway, that's a separate debate. But what I want to say to you is that Allah Azza wa Jal has created us as a half to another half, and it becomes a whole. So when two males who are really two same halves, they come together and they're like this. So basically normally a half here and a half here would come together and make a whole. But when you have, like if you take a magnet, you can see this understanding in a magnet. You take a magnet, you take the opposite ends of two magnets and they will stick together. But if you turn one magnet around, this magnet will push the other magnet away. Yes or no? You have to get them at the right ends to make them meet. So there's a push because that's this is the science of how Allah has created the whole of the world. You have in electrons, you have positive and negative. In electricity, you have positive and negative, yes or no? Yeah. And to make it work. And you have you look across the world, you look how Allah has created nature. It has opposites, and the opposites work together in harmony. Now there's going to be quite a few things I want to have to mention, why we feel that it is a wrong act. One great reason I've just said in the tafsir why it's a wrong act is because Allah has created the males and the females because they're going to have procreation. If you don't procreate, you're in danger. Your species is in danger. Your whole country is in danger. Allah has created us differently. So a woman biologically, she's been created to have a baby. And when she has a baby, there's a whole hormones and cycles that are going inside her. A, she's going to become very emotional. B, she's going to have milk that's going to appear in her breasts. C, naturally the kid should feed off. Now they've been telling, no, you don't need to feed anything. No. You basically, here's the bottle, here's some milk we made in a laboratory. You give that to your child, feed him, get a nanny, sit her down, you go back to work. So that's what she's been doing. She's been a bottle here, here's a bottle, nanny, sit down, I go to work. Now, when a woman has given birth, she needs time to get back to normal again. Her memory gets affected, the way she works gets affected. If she doesn't spend time with the child, there are huge effects that take place. I mean, any woman who's had an abortion, this new thing about abortion, any woman who's had an abortion goes through some severe psychological problems, if not minor ones. She will be affected. To my understanding from the studies that I've seen, there's no woman that will not be affected when she has an abortion. Now, it depends what stage of the abortion as well. But I'm talking about if it's a later stage of the abortion, there's definitely severe problems that she will have, in the way she is after giving that abortion. So now, she gives the bottle of milk and she says, okay, feed it. Then what happens? Well, hang on a minute. Hey, where did this breast cancer come from? Where did breast cancer come from? 100 years ago, 200 years ago, did they have breast cancer? I mean, you look at it, it's simple. You've been bottled, you've been given this artificial milk out. Women have had their milk coming in, not, given out, and the whole cycle's not being, functioning properly. And then you find, a big correlation of these women that have got breast cancer in them. But anyway, what I want to mention to you is that these are lies to people in order to make them such individuals that are going to go and do what certain governments or agencies want to do. And you know what it's all about? It's all about making money. Brothers, sisters, wake up. And those non-Muslims who are watching this, please wake up. Drugs, pharmaceutical companies are making the billions because of this artificial milk. That's what it's about. They've manipulated governments. The government comes out with a proper research that breast milk is the best thing for the child. These pharmaceutical companies, they hire scientists and they manipulate research to try and make it show that, there's nothing wrong with this kind of milk that's given to children, right? And it's better than breast milk, right? Now, with homosexuality and the whole thing about having sex and so on. Now, what they did in the last 70 years is they said that people could do this. You know what the big case right now is, which I was going to come to, which is now they've got a serious problem in the Western world of fertility. The fertility is really down. The children in the families are less than 2 children per family. So what did they do? Well, they boosted up the child benefits, right, to try and get them to have more children. They said, look, they said to their own people, so these are born Canadians, born Americans, and born British, British, lad. You have a baby, give you some money, lad. Go and spend it, lad. Yeah? You don't want to have babies. So who cashes on it? It's the Asians and the Africans and all the others that come from other countries. They come, they say, hey, we don't believe in all of this stuff. Yeah, we'll have as many children as we can. They said, hey, what's going on here? We've got to shut the borders now. Now they want to shut the borders because they've got a population crisis, a serious population crisis. Their fear is that if they allow all of these sort of indigenous people from other countries, then they're going to fill them up, and their own people, because they've got condoms, they've got sheaths that they have intercourse without wanting to have babies. There are many women out there who just don't want to have babies. If you look in the 80s, 90s, you kind of think, what kind of brainwashing people have gone through. So basically what happens is in the 50s they start to show this modern woman at the office. In the 60s it becomes like you go out there and it's all the Beatles kind of age, dance, sex, rock and roll, all that was the 60s. 70s was you have sex with as many people as you want, enjoy yourself. That's serious. And then the 80s comes AIDS. LGBTs now want to have children. So when they have children, now in all these books they have the two princes and the two princesses and so on, and they're making these books and so on, and they want us to believe that this is the case. Well, my first thing is, look, please show me a real two princes and a real two princesses that do that. I want to see Queen Elizabeth and one of her children being gay, and I want to see her kingdom in a real form of she's got within her own family, and she's proud to say that I've got daughters and sons that are like this. Because there's a bit of a hypocrisy here where the world governments are all allowing these things to spread, but they themselves won't practice it in their royal palaces and they won't have any of it. Right? But anyway, that's your right. If you want to do that, you want to spread two princes, two princesses, that's your right. Again, I'm just giving you a simple religious point of view. And why am I saying this? Is because when you start spreading this and you want to have children, then you're going to have artificial insemination. And what you will then do is you're going to have two women who want to live as lesbians. One of them wants to have a child. So then they'll insert a sperm of another man into the womb of this woman. She'll give birth. Now if she gives birth, the problem then is, and these are new research that are coming out, which is Allah has created the family unit so that it has a father with his manly traits and a mother with her motherly traits. And when you have two mothers or you have two fathers, there are going to be serious problems that will come up. Has led to many diseases that have spread. One of them is AIDS. There are many other diseases. And the other problem is, look, I'm going to mention this again from a religious point of view. When a man is having sex with his wife, her organ has got a lot of soft tissue there. It's got soft tissue. And it releases a lot of fluid when he's about to, and when he's engaging with her. The rectum or the back of a man or a woman does not release any fluids. And I want to say this very clearly, Islam is not against homosexuality per se only. Islam is against anal sex. And I want the world to know, when they accuse us of saying that you guys are against gays because you don't believe in this type of sex. No, hang on a minute. We don't just say man to man. We say man to man, man to woman. From the rear, it's haram, it's forbidden. This is us as Muslims. These are religious beliefs and we have the right to exercise that. Why do we say, why can't a man get married to his wife and then have sex with her from both ways? Well, there's a big problem, and let me make that clear. When a man has normal sex and is a heterosexual, then because her organ is giving fluid out and it's getting soft down there, his organ is able to find pleasure by a little bit of soft tissue. Okay? So the softness of that is enough for him to find enjoyment in there, and eventually he will ejaculate, or eventually his had is done. When a man has intercourse from the rear of a woman or a man, what's happening is that the rear has not been created for intercourse. And that part of a human being's body is hard. And that part of a human being's body releases no fluid. So what happens is that a man will engage in that act, whether it's with a woman or a man, and what then happens is that he gets the enjoyment because of very hard rubbing on his organ. Then when he gets used to that and he starts having sex with the woman from the front, he doesn't enjoy it anymore because he doesn't get pleasure. He needs a very hard and tough surface to try and get him aroused. Now this is the big problem here. If men continue to practice this, men will not like to go towards women. And there are many, look, you know, there are many stages of homosexuals and many different phases that go in their minds. Inshallah, this is something that I'll catch on next week or something. But when a man has become active in homosexuality, he does not want to have sex with a woman from her vagina. Why? It's simply because he's not aroused. Why is he not aroused? Because it's tissue there that doesn't even make him feel like he's touching anything. His organ doesn't even feel like he's penetrating anything. Now this is a serious problem to the human race. And again, I'm ending the series by saying, if people out there want to do what they do, they do what they do. We're not going to enforce our thing on them. All we're going to give you is we're going to give you good advice. And Jazakumullah khair wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Inshallah, see you next week with the second part of this. And again, I'm not going to have any young children in this, so wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alameen.